Okay. Hello, everyone. Um, eh, Yet again, new round of Zoom tech issues. It's so fun trying to make Zoom do things. It's just the best. I don't know why Zoom could make this harder. I think if they tried a little more, they could make it even harder, I think, to make this work. Um, all right. Today, well, I guess first, I just got back from the Urgis Energy Conference in Houston last night. That was a fun show. A lot of uh, demos from Esri on AI and various things. So it was fun to kind of see what those folks are working towards. A lot of focus on wanting to do more types of AI extraction out of imagery and other types of data sets. So that was kind of interesting to see. Um, I I guess I should apologize for my voice because the my allergies in Houston, when I landed, there was some kind of like windstorm and there was, I don't know, I think all the pollen everywhere. So now I'm still recovering from that, unfortunately. But we're here and we're gonna have a little bit of fun this morning. Um, so I do have a bunch of questions from various folks that we're going to go through once we get started. But I have kind of a challenging build that I want to do today, so I wanted to kind of get that started. So a few weeks ago, I guess it's just a few weeks now, I did a session at the GIS in Action conference here in Portland, which is just kind of the local yearly GIS conference. And I did a build an app in 30 minutes session where I go through and kind of like I did at Dev Summit. I basically use the same form. People submitted ideas. I had my AI chew through those ideas and come up with a result. And the result was the Portland Donut Dash, which had a bunch of Portland donut shops, Voodoo, Blue Star, et cetera, all around. And it would route you through multiple donut shops so that you could get your entire sugar fill. And that was fun, and it worked well. But one of the ideas that caused the AI to pitch that one as the final was this idea of being able to type in a message and having the AI convert that text into a route on on the streets on a map, um, so that you could like then go walk or ride your bike or drive that route and write that message on the streets. And that sounds really fun to me, right? Like this idea that, people post these on the internet all the time. I think people do it in Strava and things like that, where they go on like a bike ride and they take a very specific path to try to spell out a message or draw an image. Maybe drawing an image is kind of more fun, but I think writing a message is something we can maybe achieve. Um, so leading up to getting on this, I was having a chat with Claude about how we might do this here. So let me make sure my chat is on so I can see what folks are saying, and let me get the screen share going here. That's not the right one. There we go. And yeah, there we go. Okay. Okay, too many pop-ups, Zoom. Okay. So here we go. Let me get back so I can still see the chat. Yep. Hello, Ryan. Right back at you. Okay, so I started chatting with Claude this morning before we got on, and I did that because I was nervous about how complex this is. I actually pitched this idea to some folks at the Urgis conference last week or this week, and we had some good discussions, especially a shout out to Rusty for standing at the booth for a little while and brainstorming with me. Um, so I wanted to kind of get Claude thinking about how we might do this and starting on our plan, right? Because our whenever we're building an application like this, our first step is always to build a plan. Um, so Claude spit out two ideas. The first was this approach one, draw the letters as geometry, making a fake route. And it's just kind of like trying to pull from a font into a polyline and then just put it on the map. But that's kind of boring. That's just going to be letters on a map. We don't, I mean, we could do that. That's not hard. We could do that with a raster. Like that's just not what I'm looking for, right? I want actual routing instructions. So approach two that it came up with is try to take those pieces and snap them to a street network and then try to generate an actual route. So that's what I want to do. Um, I think that it kind of understands what I want, and so I told it to keep working on that, and it kind of scaffolded some stuff out. And then I asked it to, I didn't mean for it to do that. I got carried away, being distracted trying to get Zoom working. And so it went ahead and it wrote some code. And I didn't actually want it to do that. I should have been paying more attention to the instructions I was giving it. And so anyway, so I asked it to just convert that for a plan for Claude Code because you can see I've already used like 90% of my session limit in this one. So I'm already close to the end. So we're gonna have to get moved over to Claude Code so that we have a much bigger pool to pull from. Um, okay, so it made this plan. So this is where I am. We're going to look through this plan together right now, and we're going to kind of see what this does, and then we're going to get it over to Claude and Claude Code and get it started building the application and kind of see what goes on here to get this working. And again, for those of you that might be just joining us here, what we're trying to build is a little web app where I can type in a short message, like maybe one word, couple of words, very short, and have it give us a route that I could go for a walk or go for a bike ride or maybe a drive, depending on where you are. And have it be able to give you instructions on where to walk in order to draw those letters. So you could like record it with Strava or field maps or whatever you wanted to do. So you could have that message written out on the map. Probably we're going to make this really easy on ourselves and we're going to use Portland because it has a nice grid and it'll be really easy to get good letters out of it. But anyway, that's what we're trying to build. So let's see what Claude created here and see what we've got. Okay, so web app that takes a short text message, fits it into a chosen area on a map, and spells out real route snapped to the street network using ArcGIS World Route Service. That sounds pretty good. Each letter stroke becomes its own route, so the output is something that you could actually walk or drive. Yes, that is exactly what we're looking for. So our stack, ArcGIS Maps SDK for JavaScript 5. Yep, that sounds great. I did specifically ask for that. Calcite design system, sure. I'm not particularly partial to that, but that's okay. Um, and then Vite or Vite as our framework, and then we'll need to make sure our API key is there. I did think ahead enough to pre-generate an API key, but I did not think enough to give it that name. So we'll have to fix that up as we go here. Um, okay, and then we've got some architecture. We got a data flow here. So this is a little bit messy. Let's see if we can. There we go. Okay, so text to stroke. So that's text strokes in normalized glyph space. All right. Fit that stroke to the current map extent in Web Mercator. Okay, so that makes sense because Web Mercator should be basically square. So we're not worrying about as much of like the compression of latitude and longitude. Um, and then router one route.solve per stroke. Okay. I think that's going to be hard. I think, yeah, I'm not sure. I kind of think that another way to do this would be to like grab all the intersection points and then just make those as stops and have it do a route per letter. Um, but I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not just not sure how this is going to go yet. That would be a question that I would ask Claude once we get over to Claude Code here. So let's see here. Um, one route per stroke. Never merge all stops into a single route call. Draws lines. Slashing between unconnected strokes and the demo's whole premise collapses. I mean, maybe that could, if it doesn't do that, if we can't preserve the order, that would matter a lot, right? It's like if we drew the if we went like one, two, three, four, and it went in the wrong order, that would be bad. So that might be why we have to do it that way. Um, okay, so pretty sure, yeah, CDN not NPM. That's fine. That otherwise the build takes forever, and we don't want to have to wait for the tree shaker for 20 minutes. Okay, so yeah, this isn't a very deep plan, but let's start with this. I'm going to copy that. I've got this over here. So we're going to start up Claude. Um, yes, I do trust this. Okay, great. And auto mode is on. So what we're going to do here is we're going to, let's see, I'm on extra high effort, auto mode. Okay, so and Claude and Chrome is connected. Perfect. Okay, so let's see. So let's just talk to Claude for a second. Um, oh, nope. Apparently my space bar is not tied to that. Okay, I guess we're typing. Um, so we um, review this plan and actually let's just put it in plan mode. Let's force it into plan mode. I'm not because this plan is not very deep. So review this document and make a detailed plan on how to build the application. Uh, please ask clarifying questions. Okay. All right. So we're going to give Claude just a second to kind of work on that and see what it needs. The only thing in here right now, and I'm gonna open a new window. Oops. Yes. Yes. Uh, but I am gonna put this over here um, in where you all can't see it, sorry, because I want to check my API key, and I'm trying to learn the lesson of not exposing my API key to everyone on every live stream all the time where I have to keep rotating it. So I'm working hard on learning that lesson. It's a hard lesson, and probably you all will still see this API key, and I will still have to rotate it, but that's okay. Live stream, great. Vim, env. Great. Okay, API key fixed. Let's see. Okay, so we got some questions. Let's see what's going on here. Um, how should the user pick the map area where the message gets drawn? Current map extent recommended. Whoever is visible. That sounds, I like that. Sketch a rectangle, two corner. No, I think we're going to go with, I think we're going to go with current map extent. That makes the most sense to me. UI controls. What controls belong in the calcite side panel? Um, I mean, all of these, I think. Message. I've never actually had this multi-select thing. This is actually kind of cool. Travel mode picker. Yeah, I guess the world routing service from Esri, I think maybe only has driving and walking. I'm not sure, but bike we'll just call it walking for now. It's fine. Um, preview. Sure. I don't know. Yeah. Okay, looks good. All right, default view. What should the default starting view be when the app loads? Regular grid, uh, last extent, ArcGIS Maps default. Yeah, we want like a regular grid city, I think. How should preview behave? Live as you type. That sounds incredibly difficult. Let's do it. Um, yeah, all right, we'll take those. Okay, we'll have that. we'll have that cook for a minute here, or twist, as it were, as our cooking verb here. Okay, let's just check the chat, see if there's anything interesting going on. Does Claude respond better when you are polite? Gemini does. I think it kind of does. I don't know. I'm not sure that that is definitive, but I think it does behave better. And I think sometimes when you're mean to it, it tries it like, well, sometimes I think kind of behave the way you expect it to in a way. It's like if you treat it like the worst employee, then it kind of acts like the worst employee, if that makes sense. I don't I might be I might be reading into that too much. Yes, when you cuss at Gemini, it gets nervous. Yeah, same. Yeah, totally on vibe with that. I think that's yeah. Um, Claude has adopted my idiomatic expressions and conversation style. That's funny. I have noticed a thing that I do is when I'm frustrated with Claude, I do what the teenagers do. I'll say bruh. That's not what I wanted. And I notice that it tries to bruh me back sometimes. It'll be like, let's get real, Christopher, bruh, and which makes me laugh. Kind of diffuses the situation when it does that to me. So I think that's kind of fun. Okay, so we're gonna let it keep cooking over here. Oh, another question. Does treating it politely include saying please? Because often just tell Claus no. I think you can be polite without saying please constantly. But I do think that it is like predicting the next word. So the more polite you are, the more that's in the context, and the more likely it is to behave in a similar fashion, right? So I think, yeah, so I think yes, it does help, but you don't have to say please constantly as long as you're polite. Like you don't say please every time you're talking to a human too. Okay. Brian asks, have I used Ultraplan? I have. The last time I used it, it used a lot of dollars. Um, so when you really want a good plan, it works really well, but it was expensive. And I think maybe like I had to wait. I didn't have enough context before I could build it. But that might work better if you work in the afternoon. Like in the morning, you run out of context faster than in the afternoon because most people are on in the morning. Um, okay, so let's just see. I'm just going to scroll back up a little bit here and see if there's anything. Wow, there's a lot of. Here we go. Here is Claude's plan. Okay. So, hmm. This all seems about right. UI controls, default view, preview, files to create. Okay, so let's just see here. So we've got index, HTML, our plan, our source directory basically is following that original concept. So that's looking pretty good. It's importing things kind of the way I expect. Um, Message length 10. Yeah, that I agree. We're going to start with like hello or maybe world, not even hello world. That sounds like that's going to be too hard. Um, okay, and then export glyphs. So we're exporting stroke pieces. Okay, and yeah, this is looking pretty good. Get our router in there. Great. Uh, DOM ready. Yeah, okay. Very light on the package JSON. That looks pretty good. Um, Git ignore. Yep. This is looking pretty good. I feel pretty happy with this. So I'm going to say yes and use auto mode. I have high trust in Claude in auto mode. So what auto mode does is it uses another model. My guess is it's like Haiku with a very special prompt, but he uses another model to whenever the main Claude, which is this is Opus 4.7 in this case, whenever the main Claude wants to take an action, it wants to write to a file, it wants to run a script, it wants to do something, that other model looks at the requested action and tries to decide if it's safe. And if it's safe, it allows it to continue. And if it doesn't think it's safe, then it'll ask me. Um, but it gets you away from having to click yes, yes, yes on all of these things. And one of the things that will happen is some of them are simple, right? Can it edit this file in this folder? Yes, of course it can. That's what it's the whole point is to edit the files in this folder, right? Sometimes you're trying to be way more specific or surgical than that, and maybe you want to approve that manually, and that will be fine. I find that I don't really do that very often, though. Um, and then but then there'll be all of the other things. Oh, I want to run this npm command. Oh, I want to run this. I want to run this. I want to run this. And one is quite tedious to approve those things, and two, you start reading it, and sometimes it wants to run this bash command that's like 5 lines long or 10 lines long, all crammed together, and you're kind of like, well, yeah, I don't know, it seems fine. At least the auto AI is probably doing a better job of reading that full command than I'm doing. Um, but I have not seen auto actually do anything weird. I actually have a lot of trust in auto mode. But I will also say that I never allow this Claude that is working right here access to my production database because it might do something dumb like delete it. And so I'm going to avoid that problem by just simply never giving it that access. Not saying I don't give Claude access to databases, I do, but they're either a dev database or if it's production, it's read only with minimal permissions, right? Um, because I know that saying do not delete this database is not good enough. That's not going to work. I've seen it time and time again on the internet. You can't tell a model not to do something. It's like talking to an AI. It's like talking to an AI. Of course, it's talking to an AI. It's like talking to a child. As soon as you say don't do that, what do they try to do? They try to do it. Okay, it's not quite that bad with an AI, but the point is you can't say no to it. Excuse me. So we're going to let that cook for a minute here. And I am going to pull up some of the questions that got submitted and uh, talk through some of these while Claude's working over here. Okay, so first question here, in no particular order. Um, After I find an AI hallucination, what strategies do I take to prevent it from happening again? That's a good question. The the first thing I'll say is it, I do think that the rate of hallucination has come down significantly, especially when it comes to writing code. Even just a year ago when doing this, especially with a niche library like ArcGIS, where there isn't as much ArcGIS code on the internet as there are other things, it would hallucinate functions. In particular, it would do things like, oh, it would import geometry and then try to call geometry.buffer. And it's like, yeah, that would be a very sensible way for that AI, for that API to be structured or the SDK to be structured, but it just isn't. And so it would hallucinate those. And the number of times that happens now is much lower. And I think there's two reasons for that. Is one, the training has just gotten better. Two, Claude code in this mode is very much like a harness, like an agentic harness. So if it's not sure what function to call, it can test it. It can call that function itself manually, like from the command line or from a test script even, to validate that that is the right thing to do. And so I think that is, yeah, I think that actually has helped quite a bit. I'm gonna change my screen share really quick here because um, you guys can't see me right now, and that's probably more exciting if you can see me while this is working on this. Okay, so hopefully you can see me now. So this is all um, so this is working on that. So this is kind of nice to prevent hallucinations, right? Claude can kind of test and run commands, right? It's just running them on your computer. It can just run a CLI command, a command line interface command, anytime it wants to. Okay, but it still can hallucinate things, and the thing that I do is I try to include context. So I put things into documentation files and include them in my repo. So the best example I have of this is a couple of months ago, we did a build like this where we built a widget in Experience Builder, which is one of Esri's configurable tools. But you can extend it. You can use TypeScript to build your own widgets for it. But what's hard about it is it's its own framework, right? It's not something. Well, that's an interesting permission pop-up. Um, sure. I'm not sure what it's trying to do right now. Okay. Um, Anyway, we're gonna let Claude keep working on this. Um, so let's see, what was I saying? I was talking about what was I talking about? Totally lost my train of thought there. Oh yeah, hallucinations and how I prevent those. So I include always a cloud, always allow. Yes. Okay, so I include documentation in that experience builder mode. Basically what I did is I used Claude to go and scrape the internet for documentation and build me a set of core rules. And then I gave it a bunch of example widgets and I used it to kind of beef that out, right? Buffer that out, make it bigger, make more context for it. And then we kind of iterated with it a little bit. I worked on it back and forth. We do experience builder widgets all the time at Dymaptic, so we were able to kind of test these prompts and these documentation files until we got to something that was pretty reasonable. And then we include that in the repo and we just make a pointer to it where we're pointing to uh, the existence of that documentation from our Claude.md. And Claude.md is like an agent's MD in other frameworks, but it's basically that core prompt that Claude is always aware of. And if it knows that there's documentation that it should read, it will often go read it. It's quite good at that. And so that is the best trick that I have for preventing those kind of hallucination is getting documentation in the form of a markdown file uh, into the same folder, into the repo where the rest of my stuff is, and that helps. Um, yeah, it's kind of like making notes for yourself if you were doing it over weeks and weeks of time, except Claude is much faster at scraping all of that out of the internet and condensing it. Um, And then Brian adds here, create markers in MD files and slash clear context between larger chunks of dev. Yeah, that is also really helpful. Um, if you shift, oh my God, it kind of worked. There's an H and an I there, kind of. Like it's not perfect, but there's an H and an I there. Like that's okay, okay. We're just gonna let Claude keep working on it. I'm afraid to, yeah, I do want to zoom out. I'm afraid to touch it because Claude's driving. So I don't want to mess up what Claude might be trying to do right now. So I'm not gonna touch the map yet. Um, because one thing that's kind of interesting when Claude is driving the browser, you'll see the mouse appear on here, and the mouse has it's a white mouse with a little orange glow on it. That's actually Claude's mouse, not mine, as it's moving it around on the web in the web browser here. Okay, so okay, we'll come back to the next question here in a minute because it thinks it's done. Okay, so let's put hi back in. Oh, okay. So it's drawing some gray dashed lines. I don't know if you all can see those. Oh, and it's okay. So it drew those. I want to do walking. Draw that. Okay. So there's our high. Like, I mean, that's like, excuse me. Shouldn't laugh. Oh my goodness. Okay. That kind of worked. What if I what if I do it in lowercase? Hell, I can clear it. Oh, you can kind of okay, so we've got one that many donuts I know, right? Uh I kind of want to okay, so let's see if we can fix this. So um I think we need to buffer the preview overlay and output such that it is fully visible in the map. Um, right now, I have to zoom out to see the full result. And I want it all within the map view. I'm just going to try this. This is a longer one. It's not. I mean, there is an H there and an E and the two L's. That's like and oh my God. Okay. Okay, let's Claude work on that a little bit more. That's really funny. It's taking it way more literally. Although actually maybe just zooming out, maybe actually what I should have done is just zoomed out a little bit and messed with it that way or yes, yes, if I had just panned to the side or down or something like that so I wouldn't have I-15 in the middle, that might that might have helped quite a bit. Um, okay, we're gonna let Claude work on it for a minute. We'll just leave this up and let Claude work while I let's we'll go to another question here. Um, okay. Um, let's see here. Automating the creation of large hosted feature layer views for climate data and loading them to a web map in ArcGIS Enterprise. Um, so I'm not exactly sure what the question is here. I guess maybe the question is, can Claude automate the creation of large hosted feature layers and load them into web maps? The answer is yes. It can definitely do that. For example, um, I have a separate ArcGIS Online account just for my AI agent, JAWS, and I needed a new API key in order to do this application here. And so I asked JAWS to go and get me a new API key. And so it was able to connect to ArcGIS Online, log in, and then go ahead and create a uh, sorry, I'm being distracted by Claude here. And then go ahead and create that API key, register all of the permissions that it needed, and then get that back for me. So that's like a pretty high level of sophistication that Claude can do there. So it can also create feature layers. It can create feature layer views. It can totally do all of those things. And um, and yeah. You can also have it create web maps. It's not very good at making symbology yet. Like it's getting better with every release. So you might still want to intervene and or give it enough context or background information to have some guidelines for good symbology or ways that you want the symbology to work. I think like you might have to give it more information about how that should behave. Um, But I guess my question, I would really want to know what more about what you're trying to do in this case, because as Brian noted in the chat, depending on what you're doing, webhooks might be a better solution. Like just because AI can do it doesn't mean that it's the most efficient solution. Maybe you want to register a webhook to pull data in or push data in or whatever, however that is happening. Um, so there's Yeah, there's more than one way to do that. Fundamentally, Claude can do all of those things. It can manipulate ArcGIS Online and ArcGIS Enterprise, and do things like that. Can it create an item dependency diagram uh, like in ArcGIS Solutions? I haven't tried that. Um, but is all of those the item dependency stuff is in the API. So I would say it would be able to pull and query that information and generate a diagram. Yeah. I haven't tried that myself, but I would expect the answer to that is yes. Um, so long as all of the dependencies are actually registered correctly in the portal or in Enterprise. Um, yeah, I would say it can totally do that, and generate that. There are actually some orgs that have, I think GeoJob has a dependency tool where it can just map all of that for you. But I do think Claude could extract that information. Um, okay, so just to kind of recap for some folks that joined a little bit late, excuse me, what we're doing here is we're having Claude build us a what it called a route writer, where I can put in a message and then it is going to give us a route that we would follow in order to write those letters on the map. And so we just had it do a little bit of work. So I'm going to clear this and I'm gonna just move like there's a nice, this is like a nice gritty neighborhood here. Like maybe like right there. I'm just going to type in hi, and you can see it drew our gray lines here onto the map, hi. So that looks pretty good. Let's change it to, I want to do walking. Um, and I'm going to hit draw. And there's our hi. I wonder why it did that. That's weird. Oh, it's trying to get it as close as possible to the thing. Interesting. Hmm. So what we want to do something extra here. We want to, like, we actually don't want it to do these little side journeys, right? I think if we just had the straight line here and then a straight line here and a straight line here, I think we would all be quite happy with it. But because these dashed gray lines aren't exactly on the road, it's trying to get it's trying to route us to each one of those points that's intersected on the road. So we want to smooth it out somehow. Okay. Um, let's see here. I'm gonna take a screenshot of this and I'm gonna copy that and I'm gonna bring this over here and I'm gonna say nope, control V. There it is. Okay. Um, so I control V, I'm gonna paste that image into Claude. That's a pro tip in Claude. You can paste that in there. Say, as you can see in this image, um, the paths are creating little lines that go directly to the original dashed gray lines. We don't need those. We really want to smooth those out so there are fewer bumps. I'm not sure what to call those. Sticks, sticking out. That's good. I don't want any of those. And so I have some ideas about this segments. That's a good way to put it, aka segments. Um, I have some ideas about this, but if I didn't have any ideas about how to solve this problem, a good option here would be to ask Claude, give me three ways that we could solve this problem. Uh, don't write code yet. right? So I'm asking specifically for Claude to help me brainstorm, for lack of a better term in this case, right? So I think that there are some ways we could do this. We could buffer some things. Um, we could do a first pass like this, and then a second pass where we remove segments by buffering and doing a cluster type of algorithm. See, snap two, yep, snap might work. Snapping the trace to the roads, buffering. With an X proximity. All of those are really good ideas. Uh, let's see what Claude comes up with here as part of the answer. Okay, so option one, um, drop densification way down. For straight strokes, use just the endpoints, two stops. For a curved stroke, use 4 to 6 points placed at the curvature of inflection rather than evenly spaced. Fewer waypoints equals fewer chances for the router to detour onto a side street and back. Okay, so admittedly, I didn't think of that. Um, and I think I didn't think of that because I wasn't thinking about densifying this because I don't think I would have densified this if it were me. I would have just kind of by default taken the first and last point. So that's kind of interesting to me. I kind of like that idea. Let's see what number two is. Pre-snap and dedupe. Before calling route.solve, snap each waypoint to the nearest street using an ArcGIS service like network service nearest feature, or just doing a geocode reverse snap. Then collapse runs of consecutive points that land on the same street segment down to two, entry and exit. So yeah, I think that would also work. That was very similar to some of you had suggested snapping to the trace network or snapping it to the roads. So that could work. And then post-processing the routed polyline. Uh, leave routing alone, clean up the return polyline at the end with two flares. Geometric simplify, so using generalize with a bigger tolerance that would be larger. So that's like a buffer larger than that segment. That could work. Out and back detector. Walk the polyline, find any subsequence where the path leaves a vertex and returns the same vertex within n meters via a reverse path. Yep. So that's looking for we cross this point here multiple times. Okay, I actually like all three of those. We probably don't need all three. So try number one first is Claude's recommendation. I think I agree with that. Uh, try option one first. Let's see what Claude does there. So I just want to kind of emphasize that um, this is even if you don't know, like you don't fully understand the problem space that you're working on, or you don't know exactly what uh, application you're going to build or exactly how that application is going to work, um, talking through these kinds of problems and these questions with Claude can actually help you build an understanding of the problem. So in this case, like I might not know in this case, I happen to kind of understand all of these concepts that it's outlining here. But if I didn't know it, I would go do some more research, right? I would go read up on, for example, what is the generalized method do? And there's two ways I could do that. I could go find the documentation online, or I could just go open what I would probably default to is opening another Claude window and just being like, hey, can you, in the ArcGIS JavaScript SDK, can you explain what geometry engine.generalize does and give me sources to continue my education or continue learning? And you notice I ask it to give me sources in that case. So that it usually will give me a working link when I ask for sources. And so I can then go and read the original source doc too and try to build my own understanding of what that is, which I think is actually super useful. Okay, so Claude's working on that. It's gonna philosophize for a few minutes. So we'll just let that go for a minute while it works on editing that. And let's look at another question here. Again, kind of randomly selecting from the list. Um, Oh, let's see here. Can I create a model or game to predict how geopolitics may play into current Israel-US-Iran war or Russia-Ukraine war based on what happened in recent wars, such as Iran-Iraq war or Russian-Afghanistan war? Woo, okay. Could I create a model that could predict that? Maybe. Um, but I mean, I don't know. The large language models are really good at predicting the next word, predicting what the way you would, or as a human would react to uh, uh, an input. It's kind of like the average case. So in that case, like you might be able to use a large language model to build a way to predict how people would behave. There are people trying to do that with like the stock market and using large language models to try to analyze how stocks will happen. So like maybe is the answer there. I have no idea where I would even start. I guess if I was going to try to do that, I would just start asking Claude, how can I use a model or a large language model to predict geopolitics? I think that's probably hard because you're dealing with not only individuals but large uh, political entities that are complex. Um, so that's probably quite difficult to try to predict. Uh, but I don't see why you couldn't try to predict that with a large language model. There's other types of world models, like NVIDIA has big weather models that are useful in predicting very large and micro weather patterns. So you can use the same model to predict very large weather patterns, like across the entire continent, or you can use it to predict very local weather patterns just in within a city. And so and those have thousands of inputs and billions of parameters. So like you can totally build these kinds of models that can predict complex systems like that and model complex systems. I think the question is, do you have enough data to train on? So that's kind of a kind of an interesting question. Okay, so let's see. Um, how we're doing here. So this does look slightly better, but I'm going to clear it and get away from these bigger roads and try our smaller area right over here again. I'm going to do high like we were doing. Oh, and see, look how lined up it is. I bet this is going to look really good. Yeah, see, like that actually looks pretty good except for this thing. I wonder if this is like a one-way street or something. Of course, there's no street markings at all on the Esri base map. I wonder if that's, I, I wonder, oh, you know what? Let's do walking though. Oh, whoops. There we go. See, that worked. That worked. That worked. So now that's looking pretty good. Like that, I'm actually fairly happy with that result. I think I want to do more cleanup like this end, like this end here. I kind of want that to just snap to the nearest thing. So I think this is actually much better. So let's have it work on one more thing. We got like 13 minutes left. So let's have it work on one more thing while we work on a couple of other things here, a couple other questions. So this is okay. So we're gonna say this is way better. See, there's me giving it positive feedback. This is way better. But I want to get rid of the little segments on the ends. Uh, Take a screenshot of the current browser state and you will see what I mean. Um, Perhaps our original option 2 or 3 can do that. Make a proposal. Don't write code yet. Sometimes I just let it go if I know what the answer is, but I'm just kind of illustrating this loop process that I sometimes use here, especially when I'm working on an algorithm, when it's just a web application with buttons and I'm trying to change the layout or move things, I tend to let it work longer. But when I'm doing an algorithm like this, I tend to loop more tightly on the algorithm. Um, okay, so Let's see, more question. The other questions. Must supercomputer in Memphis is running that constant? Yeah, probably. Um, one way. Yep. Have I tried any of the superpowers plugin for Claude Code? No, I have not. Though I've not used any of those in particular. Um, I I am not I'm not very into building a whole bunch of skills or things for my building. I don't find for myself a lot of value in those. I like the default behavior of Claude, and so I tend to uh, take the defaults. I manage my context by clearing when I change tasks. I manage the effort that I'm using on a particular thing, but uh, I tend not to use many extra skills or things. We have some internally that we've built for like experience builder. I think that helps. Having that extra documentation helps. We have some for some other internal processes that we use that are very specific, but I don't I don't really use many other things because I like the default behavior and I want to keep my context down. I want to keep the number of options that Claude has lower because the more options it has, the more confused it tends to get. So I want to keep all of those as low as possible while I uh, while I'm working on things like this. So, um, yeah, I tend to just work with Claude in its vanilla flavors. Um, Re-weather models have recently become much less accurate, at least here in the Netherlands, due to more and more extreme weather. So I can imagine trying to predict based on extreme circumstances only tentative at best. I think that that might be true. I do think that the NVIDIA weather models, those world models, are a bit better than our traditional ones at the extreme weather circumstances. Um, but I don't have a ton of experience with that, so I can't, I don't know how accurate they are in those environments. But um, yeah, I don't know how accurate they would be in that. I think there could be a problem there because they are going to be based on historic information. Um, but there are so many more inputs into those world models than any of our traditional weather models have ever had. Like they used to have a lot more, uh, they used to have a lot fewer inputs, right? We couldn't handle thousands of input data sets, not even just thousands of input numbers, but thousands of input data sets, where each data set is its own matrix of information that has to go in. And so there's a lot more data to be processed now that we couldn't do before. So I guess I hope that they would be more accurate, but I guess I don't know. I guess I don't know. Can I recommend a good website or YouTube channel for getting started with Claude Code? Um, so I think the way that the thing that I typically recommend to folks is to go to Claude's website and look at its getting started guide, and then and I've just gone and forgotten his name, but the creator of Claude Code has some information about the way he uses it that he's talked about and posted online, and those are the things that I would start with because uh, Anthropic and those developers use Claude every day to not only build Claude, but build the rest of their infrastructure. And so I think they're probably as close as we can get to experts in the current iteration of not only the tool, but the model. And so that's where I would start. There are a lot of YouTube channels out there of people that will walk you through Claude Code. The other thing that I highly recommend is just start using it because I think it is a very experience-based skill at the moment. And so the more you use the AI tool, the better you understand when to trust it and when not to, and things like that. Okay, we got a few minutes left. Let's quickly see what our uh, what's Claude doing here. I see exactly what you mean. Every stroke has tiny perpendicular feet on both ends. They're not spurs mid-stroke. Those are gone, but they stub proposal. Take the polyline that comes back from route.solve from the start, walk inward vertex by vertex. At each vertex, compute the heading change between the incoming and outgoing segment. The first time that heading change exceeds a threshold, 60 degrees, stop. That's the corner where the route turns into its real street. Oh, interesting. Hmm. So it's basically advocating for a process to clean the start and end of each polyline. Uh, that's kind of interesting. Um, Heading change trim and short segment trim. Yeah, let's try it. I think that is going to work. I'm not sure it's the right answer. I think it could have false positives. I think we might actually want to go back to one of the other processes that we brainstormed with it at the beginning, or like a buffer process, or probably a better one is the snap. Snapping those gray lines to a route network is probably the right answer. Or snapping the vertexes to the route network is, and then routing from point to point is probably the better answer. But uh, since we've only got 5 minutes left, we'll just let Claude cook on that and go. I'm pretty happy with this for an hour of work. It's not something I would like deploy to anybody yet, but I am pretty happy with the outcome. Like it this actually worked a lot better than I expected it to. At least on a nice gridded neighborhood like that. It's working quite well. Okay, so um, the next question on my list is actually about AI sustaining its current growth rate and if we're in a bubble. And this is a really tough question to me. I think that if we imagine AI as any other uh, advancement in technology, then probably we are in some kind of a bubble. Um, but in order for that bubble to pop, what would I think we would have to see like significant increase in pricing on the AI, the frontier labs, and or a reduction in the amount of investment coming from venture capital into those firms. And we have seen some things, some price changing, like GitHub going to consumption-based pricing instead of a subscription pricing. Um, so we have seen that a little bit. So that kind of makes it feel like it might be bubble-like. But we're still seeing huge investment going into data centers, huge investment going into the organizations themselves. You know, Claude or Anthropic has like the highest monthly run income revenue. There's some, I forget what the word is, but ever in an application for subscriptions to Claude. So like, I don't, I don't think that we're going to see anything pop anytime soon. I also think that these AI tools is like, these are so powerful compared to like you compare AI to the internet, like the transformation we're going through that we're living through right now, I think is even bigger than the internet. So I guess I don't expect a bubble to pop, but I do expect that as AI gets better at things and as all of us have to learn how to integrate it into our jobs, into our processes, I do expect upheaval from time to time in different industries. Like I think software development is an interesting one because I don't have to write for loops anymore, right? I have AI to write for loops for me. So I don't actually, and it's probably, I think AI is better at writing for loops than your average software developer at the moment. So I don't have to write that. So, so I think that I think that means that software is in an interesting spot because it still requires judgment and thinking about what it is you're building, just like we're seeing here, right? Like what Claude built here. Now we didn't have the most best plan, right? We could have done a better plan at the beginning, and we could have thought about these at the beginning of our process instead of the end. But that's one of the fun parts of this is thinking about it during development instead of all at the beginning. Um, I think that the expertise that's required to use an AI to build software like this is starting to change. And you don't have to be good at writing loops, but you do have to be good at thinking critically through processes, thinking critically through algorithms, thinking and judging the output that the AI has, and thinking about whether or not it's right or whether or not it's wrong, and what that looks like. And I think that uh, the change in the skill is what's going to happen. And but I do also think that there's going to be way more software built in the next few years than ever before. Very much like the software architect. Yes, I agree. Um, I think I think that we're going to see a lot more software coming soon than we've seen ever before. And how that's going to be sustainable or not is going to be an interesting problem. But I think that the it means that we're going to need a lot more people that can act as an architect, that can act as an AI guide, so to speak, to build and maintain software. And you're not going to be maintaining one piece of software anymore. It's going to be uh, uh, many pieces of software that a single person might maintain using a whole fleet of different AI agents, and you having to do context switching. And you might do only one application per day in order to save your own brain. But I think that we're going to see way more actually being built, not less. And I think with way more, I think that will be more jobs, more um, economic growth, but the skill is slightly different. Okay, so we're at time here, and it's working on it. We're getting actually pretty close. It did a test and it was doing some things a little bit better. It's still continuing to iterate on it, but we kind of got there. I'm going to stay on for just another minute here while this oh, it finished. Okay. Well, let's just test it real quick. We're gonna go up to our nice square neighborhood here and type hi. Okay, good. So we have some mismatch and we're going to go to walking. Yeah, that's pretty good. So there's still one little one that it got left down here, but that is much cleaner. So pretty close. I like where this is going. You could definitely keep iterating on this. And this was kind of fun. We're probably um world or something weird. Yeah. Suffers a little. Ooh, our L really suffered there, because it's over here and then some. Ooh, okay. Something kind of gnarly happened some there, but that was fun. I had fun doing that. We're gonna call that good enough where it is. Uh, I'm gonna check and see any other things here. Curious, when brainstorming with Claude, do multiple questions throw off any of its previous work when implementing the chosen plan you've determined with it? Yeah, sometimes and that's a good question relevant to this. Sometimes uh, asking questions causes it to kind of fragment. That's when clearing the context yourself actually helps clean it up. So a lot of times if you're doing a lot of brainstorming in Claude code and you're in plan mode, at the end of plan mode, it'll be like, okay, are you ready to clear context and start writing code? And the answer is yes. You do want to clear the context. You want to get all of the decision process out, all of the back and forth out, and the plan in. So yeah, definitely paying attention to that. And if it starts doing stuff you don't like, try clearing the context and having write down the plan, clear the context, and start over. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. I'm gonna stop here. I'll see you next month, where we're going to build yet again something else probably and answer some more questions. There are a couple questions I didn't get to here, but we'll do some more next time. So get those in early, and thank you all for coming. See you next month.